Any copyrighted material in this video is used under fair use for commentary and criticism. The purpose of the OC Court of Justice is to learn about character development and is in no way meant to promote harassing the artists mentioned. Please do not spam or harass any of the following artists, and if anything, show your support. Thank you. It's been 3 years since I've done a court case? Geez, all these OCs have been running around in the streets with no one to kick them back into line. Tisk, tisk, tisk. What have you been doing, Jojo? I've left you in charge of the OC roundup. Ah, whatever. We've got a new one on trial now. Today we have Alexandria Agape by Alman Toms. Though that's her official title, she prefers to be simply called Agape. She is a Greek god. Before we take a look at this character, we should learn a bit about Greek gods. To most of us, they're just characters, but to the people in ancient Greece and the surrounding areas, they were a lot more than that. Today there are still people who believe in and worship Greek gods. Just like almost every other deity man has written about, the myths that feature these gods often have some kind of moral implication, kind of like Aesop's fables if Aesop wrote about gods turning into animals in order to sexually assault people. Zeus, man, he, doesn't have the prettiest track record. These moral teachings often have an emphasis on the dangers of committing hubris. Hubris, which defines a state of being obscenely prideful and arrogant. This can lead to vile acts against your fellow man, and in some mythology, foolish souls that allow hubris to overcome them meet an unfortunate end. I'm hoping that as we look through Agape's information, we'll see some of these themes in use. So let's talk about Agape. Her name is derived from a word in the Greek language that refers to unconditional love, giving without expecting anything in return, accepting someone for their flaws, and just general concern for your fellow man. That should foreshadow a lot about this character. Greek gods have been known to be named after concepts like this. Eros is a term that refers to romantic love. Eros is also a god, the son of Aphrodite more specifically. Makes sense, doesn't it? From what I can tell, there is no goddess Agape, so the author's character has an opportunity to fit into the Greek mythos narrative without completely cutting out or changing another god, which I'd say is pretty optimal. Here's an excerpt describing the story this character is featured in. The original story is called A Goddess's Handbook, and it's basically about a young Greek goddess named Agape whose birth changed the world and started a new era of enlightenment. The era takes place in the near future where ancient gods from different countries are started to be worshipped again since there's literally proof that they are real. Okay, that's a rather interesting concept. I'd imagine there'd be a lot of social ramifications for finding proof of godly entities. We'll get to the rest of her description in a bit, but first I'm going to check out the author's original webcomic, A Goddess's Handbook. I'll give a quick read to see if I can understand the narrative based on the comic alone. In comics, it's important to make sure that the visuals are as clear in depicting the story as the narration or dialogue is. If you want to check out the comic yourself, head on over to Webtoon and search A Goddess's Handbook. I'll read a bit of the comic for you so you can get a feel for it. Spoilers, by the way. I don't know if that's necessary, but I thought I should say it. Just to let you know, there's a few spelling and grammatical errors that I'll automatically correct during the reading, unless I think it's flavor text. I wonder how someone like me would die. Well, let's find out now. Despite what happened, we had a good life, didn't we? Yeah, I wonder what your guys' families and friends are doing right about now. We left them on a good note, something that the world will never forget. But what about them? Do you think they miss? No. We didn't exist. How can they remember us if we aren't real anymore? This looks like a young human being, with what seems to be two entities living inside them. One wears this robe, they look like a scholar. The other is wearing a headdress, but I'm not sure what their domain in terms of being a god or higher entity is, if that's what they are. The dialogue here makes me believe that this kid has the power to erase their existence from history, and after doing so, they're now going to end their life. We're not given the reason as to how or why they're doing this, but that will probably be explained later if the author has made it that far into the development of their story. I know we said we're fine with the decision we made, but I'm starting to think that's a lie. Hey, you can still turn back. They must have a pretty good reason for doing this. I'm sorry. I guess I'm the most selfish person here. I'm sorry, but living here isn't enough for me. Come on, girlie. Even if they don't remember us, we can still remember them. Yeah, despite it all, we had a great life. It's a little hard to follow who's saying what, but I noticed that there's an entity always saying, yeah, so I can kind of follow along based on that. Like I said, I'm the most selfish person out there. I simply can't take it anymore. Girlie, what are you saying? Didn't she state at the beginning that she's going to find out what it's like to die? Guys, she's gonna jump. You better start talking some sense into her because she's far down this rabbit hole already. I meant, this is our goodbye, friends. No. Wait. The next few scenes depict her stepping off the cliff and falling to her death. I like this transition here where the screen goes from black to white right before she hits the ground, and instead of hitting the ground, she is now descending into the clouds, into rays of light, and then into bed. I think it gives a fairly good impression that there has been a time lapse and we're seeing her reincarnated form. This scene was cleverly done in my opinion, though I could see how some people might not understand it if they didn't read Agape's detailed bio, and that would be a bit of a problem. The scene we just read through turns out to have been a dream of this 4-year-old child, who is turning 5 very soon. She is now Agape. She's breaking the fourth wall and introducing herself to us. She explains that she is the goddess of goodwill, literature, and other things. I guess they're not that important to mention. Oh hey, maybe I was right about the scholar thing. Go me. Agape mentions her father a lot, but by the end of the page it isn't directly stated who he is. Hermes is her uncle though, so that means her father could be, oh, literally anyone. A woman referred to as Miss Paddo looks after Agape. Her full name is, Elias Papadopoulos. Yeah, we'll just call her Miss Paddo. I don't believe she's supposed to be a pre-existing character of mythology, because all I get is a football player when looking her name up, and she doesn't look like she'll be quarterbacking anytime soon, though she does seem well cushioned. So as far as I can tell, she's another original character. I do like parts of Agape's personality, like right here when she's reading her followers' prayers. Oh, great daughter of blah blah blah, most kind, most generous, why humans only give me fluff? I'd like to think that'd be my reaction if I was a god. Her demeanor comes off as childish, and she is a child, so that's cool. She doesn't seem to take her responsibilities too seriously yet, but she's still somewhat down to earth. It can be easy to make child characters really annoying. There's a fine line between writing them realistically and writing them all hammed up like as if you stuck a note reading, "This is a child," in all caps on their forehead. Agape, at times, gets a little more excitable than what seems necessary, a bit hammy. For this, Agape has been charged with being definitely a child. She has to take medication, which according to her biography written by the author, is to combat the void flu, a virus she contracted during her time in the void of non-existence following her death. Those things taste like a shoe and are too big for me to swallow. I hear ya, girl. I'll be choking on uncoated pills like a fish trying to swallow a hamburger. I like the inclusion of real-life artifacts in the comic. On page 7, we're taught about what a Hermes is, with some funny banter about its unique design. This got me to chuckle a little bit, as I wasn't expecting this kind of conversation to happen. I misunderstood these notations, thinking that the characters were continuing to talk about his dongle, and I was about to say that the joke runs a little long, and they didn't need to comment so much about his stone sausage. You may want to find another way to censor him. Persephone, Hades' wife, is introduced, but the way the drawings are executed first led me to believe that Miss Paddo was actually Persephone in disguise, and that she was revealing her true form as Persephone in order to protect Agape. I had to look over that a second time to understand. By the end of the currently uploaded pages, we discover a few more facts, like that Apollo is Agape's father, and that gods had suddenly reemerged into the public eye without any explanation, leaving many people really confused as to why they're suddenly here now. The webcomic sets up what seems to be a pretty straightforward premise. Other than cleaning up the writing errors, and maybe fine-tuning the dialogue a bit, I don't believe I have any other charges to pass considering Agape as a character right now. Guys, let's get into her biography. Wow, it's been a while since we've been here, huh guys? Feels good to be back in the gig. Here's what I've summed up as her beginnings. Alexandria, Agape's original form, has unknown origins other than that she didn't originate from Greece. She just came there one day, and as far as anyone else remembers, was dead as a doornail soon after. After erasing everyone's memory of her, Alexandria commits suicide and her soul is sent to the void of non-existence, where she contracts the void flu. One night, Apollo got nearly blackout drunk and fooled around with a woman who is believed to be a minor god, and woke up naked in a hotel room by himself. Ah, we've all been there, Apollo. It's okay. When Alexandria, now reborn as Agape, was anonymously left with him, none of the gods had time for her. They couldn't even make her god-specific baby formula. Apollo made an agreement with Aphrodite to fund her expensive shopping sprees if she were to allow Agape to nurse on her breasts. Where can I sign up for this job? Aphrodite ends up rather attached to Agape and even influences Agape's transformation into a god of love, as stated here. In the present day, Agape is really close to Aphrodite, which led her to becoming a god of love just like her, even if she's a god of a more love everyone love, rather than the lustful one. I think it's safe to assume she was named fairly early into her infancy, and not anywhere near the present day, correct? It would be a pretty big coincidence for her to be named Agape, and then for her, later on after Aphrodite bonds with her, to develop into the god of, well, Agape. Apollo giving her that name suggests he believed she embodied that quality or was even already the god of Agape. It's doubtful he'd name her without intent. I highly suggest clarifying if she was born the god of her domains, Agape, literature, etc., or if she earned dominion over these things. In Greek mythos, either way is possible, though there's a preference to the latter. Agape is still dealing with the void flu, but has recovered enough that she can finally visit her fans on Earth. She's only been alive for 5 years in her reincarnated form, but often takes the form of a 10-year-old child so that she can reach her kitchen counter, very important, and avoid most perverts, since most adults are only attracted to adults. I don't know, Agape. I think you're gonna find the worst kind of perverts now. Speaking of, she gets a lot of perverts on a daily basis. Agape has a few theories why this is happening. 1, she's too cute for this cruel world. 2, pop culture in Hollywood. Or 3, Eros hates her and wants to mess with her, via cursing her with gross neckbeards with an entitlement complex and a willingness to want to marry a virgin goddess despite Agape being very underage. I mean, setting up a child to be harassed by adults is kind of fucked up, yo. Eros should be arrested and go to God Court or whatever they have going up there. Oh, who am I kidding? This whole shindig is ran by Zeus, and we know what he gets up to. I have no charges for her biography thus far. I think the color palette is wonderful. Here we have a range of 4 colors, 3 warm and 1 neutral. Warm colors complement the tone of her character, bubbly, a little mischievous, and the poster child for platonic love. I think it's optimal that the majority of her attire is white because it's neutral and pairs with other colors easily. And also when you think of gods and the heavens, you think of white. I think both her child and adult designs look very nice. They're simple, but I wouldn't call them generic. I suggest taking a look at dress codes in Greece to make sure that your character is appropriately dressed for the places they'll be going. I don't think there are strict dress codes for visiting, let's say, the Temple of Zeus, but there are dress codes for visiting churches, for instance. Just something to keep in mind. You know, I'm actually half Greek, and I have curly brown hair. My name is Alexandria too. Wait, are you copying me? I'm just kidding. Agape is incredibly optimistic, over-emotional, idealistic to a fault, spoiled, a free spirit, very book-smart, and kind. She loves to read, as reading was a pastime that kept her from being too unbearably lonely as she recovered from the void flu. She likes chocolates, dolls, and cutesy stuff. She dislikes it when people damage books, is cruel to animals, and are creepy towards her. Yeah, I think most of us feel that last one. Sometimes she gets a little temperamental when frustrated and has called someone the I word, idiot. Which doesn't exactly seem very empathetic, but I think that's more due to her being immature rather than intending harm. Everything here seems consistent. I think certain parts of her personality tie well together, like how she's idealistic and spoiled, or how she's portrayed as a free spirit and is overly emotional. Agape has a lot of different unique powers, like being able to shapeshift into a few different human forms, is a friend to all animals, can remember anything she writes down in her special book, is able to read incredibly fast, clocking in at 302 pages a minute, can speak a few hundred languages, can create soft winds, and has priceless hair that grows back fast. These are a lot of incredible, unique powers to have. They're very fun, but I have to wonder if she has too many powers that could easily dissolve any conflict, thus creating a lack of friction in the story because she is too overpowered. For her traits, I'm going to charge her with 1 account of being a special snowflake. After taking in all this information, I have to admit I feel that something important is missing. I don't think we've been introduced to the main conflict of her story. Going back to my initial discussion about Greek god mythos, I think it'd be appropriate to take a similar approach to Agape's story, and that a goddess's handbook already has a great setup for one. Agape admits herself that she is spoiled, and growing up spoiled can really skew your sense of ego, which could lead to her facing her own hubris. By conquering this inner demon, she could truly become everything Agape is meant to be. See, it's like puzzle pieces falling right in. It all just kind of fits together. It is time, my children. Alexandria Agape by Almond Toms. You have been charged with being definitely a child and a special snowflake. How do you plea?
I'm 5, ma'am. I don't know how this works.
Alexandria Agape, for the charge of being definitely a child, you are found guilty. Sometimes I feel her reactions are a little bit much, but honestly, it's not too bad, so I'll cut this sentence in half. For the charge of being a special snowflake, you are found guilty. Greek gods have incredible powers. That's kinda their shtick, but they usually only have 2 to 5, and they're all often quite related to each other. Agape is primarily the goddess of platonic love, but also reading and literature. She has all the powers I listed back in her traits, which include being able to control small winds and being a friend to all animals, which I understand as animals having an unusual attraction to her. She has over 5 powers, and some of them seem unrelated to her most important domains, love and literature. I think her powers should be refocused to those areas, and maybe have a couple of them develop over the course of the story. I actually had a really hard time making this conviction. I went back and forth on being guilty or not guilty. I didn't want to say guilty, but I need to be earnest. I'll half the sentencing on this one as well, because I think you just need to cut down on a couple powers. Regardless of these infractions, there's still a lot I enjoy about her character. Your sentence? 20 years in OC prison for the conviction of being definitely a child and being a special snowflake. It's gonna be fine. You're like immortal, right? Almond Toms, thank you for submitting your character to the OC Court of Justice. Here is your Shibi. I'm looking forward to seeing how a goddess's handbook will turn out, and I hope that Agape's trial helps you as you continue developing her character. I can tell that you put a lot of research into this. I just want to remind everyone that with how I'm running the court now, expect that many OCs who come here will be charged guilty of something. Nothing we create is perfect, right? What I want to convey with my OC Court of Justice series is that we all have parts of our characters and stories that we could likely improve. You, me, everybody. My job here is to give a third-party opinion on what I think authors here need to focus on in terms of improvement, with the knowledge and perspective I've gathered based on what I've seen succeed and what's logical to me. I just want to entertain and teach a few things, and if authors that submit their OCs don't feel my advice is right for them, they are completely free to disregard it. I'm not gonna go to your house, hold a gun to your head, and be like, have you changed your SCP characters so that they aren't wearing those purple stockings with flaming hot Cheetos on them yet? They're totally incorrect and I can't take your character seriously. Plus, my videos can still be helpful to everyone else, so as I see it, they're always worth making. If you enjoy the videos I make, I please ask that you share this video with others and cram it with likes and all that YouTube stuff. I would love to get this channel back on its feet, and it's taken a bit of a hit since I've needed to focus on my game, which is doing great by the way. I thank everyone who has patiently stayed with me, I thank all the people who may come back, and I thank the newcomers for taking an interest in my series. See you next time! Here's a special shout out to JINX, a user who sent me this fan art the very first year I began the OCCOJ. I believe I reblogged their artwork on my Tumblr page, but I'm afraid it didn't occur to me to share it in a video until now. I want to let you know that this is still special to me, and that I hope you'll contact me so I can share this on Twitter and tag you. I'd also like to thank Gwyn MacClellan for helping me research some of the info on Greek gods for this video. It's much appreciated.